Imagine, for a moment, the worst economic disaster in modern history. When you picture the Great Depression of the 1930s, the images are black and white, and they are brutal. You see long lines of men in flat caps waiting for soup. You see bank-run headlines plastered across newspapers. You see dust bowls and shanty towns. It was loud, it was visible, and it was terrifying. Now, fast forward to today. Look out your window. The skyscrapers are taller than ever. Stock market is breaking all-time highs. The unemployment rate, we are told, is historically low. Everyone has a smartphone in their pocket, and delivery drivers drop food at our doorsteps in minutes. On the surface, this is the golden age of abundance. But if that's true, ask yourself a simple question. Why does it feel like you are drowning? Why does a six-figure salary, which used to be the gold standard of success, now barely cover the mortgage and daycare? Why are credit card balances hitting historic peaks while savings accounts drain to zero? Why do you feel like you are working harder than your parents ever did, yet falling further behind? Here is the terrifying reality that no politician will admit. We are heading toward a depression. We are already living in one. But this isn't a depression of soup lines and dust bowls. It is a silent depression. It is invisible. It hides behind manipulated statistics and green GDP charts. It doesn't look like poverty. It looks like exhaustion. It is a crisis not of scarcity, but of affordability. And today, we are going to pull back the curtain on the greatest economic gaslighting campaign in history, to show you exactly how the numbers are lying to you and why, despite what the news says, your dollar is dying. To understand this silent collapse, we have to look at the massive disconnect between the economy and your economy. If you turn on the financial news right now, you will hear phrases like soft landing, robust growth, and disinflation. The Federal Reserve and government officials point to the gross domestic product, GDP, as the ultimate scorecard. When the GDP goes up, the country is winning. But here is the problem. GDP measures the total value of goods and services produced. It measures activity. It does not measure your quality of life. If you get into a car accident, GDP goes up because of the repair bills and medical costs. If a hurricane destroys a city and we have to rebuild it, GDP goes up. The government prints $1 trillion and spends it on bombs. GDP goes up. The economy can grow on paper while the people within it are being crushed. We are constantly told that the average American is wealthier today than in the past. We have iPhones, streaming services, and cheap flights. But these are cheap technological commodities. When it comes to the things that actually build generational wealth, housing, education, and equity, we have been stripped bare. This dissonance creates a psychological toll. You feel poor, but the data says you're rich. It makes you feel like the failure is personal. But I am here to tell you, it is not you. It is the math. And to prove it, we need to do something uncomfortable. We need to go back to the worst time in history, 1930, and compare the hard numbers to today. Let's travel back to the depths of the Great Depression, 1930. This was a time of undeniable suffering. Unemployment hit 25%. We cannot minimize that. But for the person who did have a job, the average worker, what did their purchasing power actually look like? In 1930, the average individual income was approximately $1,368 a year. That sounds like pennies. But let's look at the costs. Do the math with me. The price of a home was roughly 3 times the annual salary of a single worker. A single man working at a factory could buy a home, a car, support a wife and 3 kids, and still save money. He didn't need a credit card. He didn't need a second job. He didn't need his wife to work just to keep the lights on. The standard of living in terms of asset acquisition was attainable. Now, snap back to 2024. The average individual income is around $56,000, but the median home price has skyrocketed to over $420,000. In major cities, it's closer to $1 million. The ratio has jumped from 3-to-1 to nearly 8-to-1, and in some places, 10-to-1. This is the great paradox. Our grandparents lived in a time of primitive technology but immense purchasing power. They were asset-rich. We live in a time of miraculous technology but pathetic purchasing power. We are asset-poor. In the 1930s, if you lost your job, you could survive on odd jobs because rent was cheap. Today, missing two paychecks means homelessness for millions of families. We have traded security for convenience. We have traded ownership for subscriptions. And the most insulting part, the government tells us inflation is under control. How do they get away with this lie? They get away with it because they changed the definition of inflation. This is the mechanism of the silent depression. It's not just about printing money. It's about altering the thermometer so it doesn't show the fever. Over the last 40 years, the government has fundamentally rewritten how they calculate the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. There are three main tricks they use to hide the reality of your poverty. Decades ago, the CPI measured a fixed basket of goods. The price of steak went up, inflation went up. Simple. But the government didn't like those high numbers. So they added substitution logic. The logic goes like this. If steak becomes too expensive, the consumer will switch to hamburger meat. If hamburger becomes too expensive, they will switch to chicken. So, the government tracks the price of the chicken you are now forced to eat rather than the steak you can no longer afford. They report that your food costs haven't risen that much, ignoring the fact that your standard of living has collapsed. They measure the cost of survival, not the cost of living. This is where they adjust prices based on quality improvements. This started in 1971, the moment President Nixon took the U.S. off the gold standard. Before 1971, as workers became more productive, their wages rose equally. After 1971, productivity continued to skyrocket thanks to computers and the internet. But wages, they flatlined. Where did all that extra money go? It didn't go to you. It went to the top 1%, the asset holders, the CEOs, the shareholders. It went into stock buybacks and offshore accounts. The system is rigged to ensure that the currency loses value, forcing you to run faster just to stay in the same place. This brings us to the modern day, where these three tricks have culminated in a society that is breaking apart. We are now witnessing the mirror moment, the point where history repeats itself, but with a modern twist. Economists call our current situation a K-shaped recovery. Picture the letter K. The vertical line is the economy before the crisis. Then it splits. The upper arm of the K represents the wealthy and the asset owners. Because the government printed trillions of dollars, asset prices, stocks, real estate, gold went to the moon. If you owned assets, you got richer without lifting a finger. The lower arm of the K represents everyone else, the wage earners, the renters, the savers. For this group, the printed money didn't increase their wealth, it only increased their cost of living. Look at the data from this year. Credit card debt in the U.S. has smashed through the $1 trillion barrier, an all-time high. Auto loan delinquencies are rising to levels we haven't seen since 2008, and we are seeing a new phenomenon called doom spending. Young people are spending money on luxury goods, expensive dinners, and travel, not because they are rich, but because they have given up hope. They know that saving $500 a month will never, ever buy them a house when home prices rise by $50,000 a year. So why save? Why not enjoy the moment before the system breaks? This is stage 4 in the cycle of imperial collapse, social decay, and loss of faith in the currency. It's not just about money. It's about time. To maintain a middle-class life in the 1950s took 40 hours of labor per week per household. Today, it takes 80 to 100 hours. 2 parents working, side hustles, gig work. We are working twice as hard for half the purchasing power. We have moved from a society of owners to a society of debtors. And if you think this is accidental, think again. So, where does this road end? If we continue on this path of hidden inflation and currency debasement, what is the finale? We are moving toward a new economic structure that historians and economists are starting to call neo-feudalism. In the Middle Ages, you had lords who owned the land and serfs who worked the land. The serfs owned nothing. They paid rent to the lord for the privilege of existing. In the 21st century, the structure is the same, but the branding has changed. The lords are the megacorporations and investment firms like BlackRock and Vanguard, who are buying up single-family homes by the thousands to turn them into permanent rentals. The serfs are the subscription class. You will subscribe to your housing. You will lease your car. You will pay a monthly fee for your software, your entertainment, even your heated seats. You will own nothing, and as the World Economic Forum infamously predicted, you will be expected to be happy about it. This is the silent depression's endgame. It's not a sudden explosion. It's a slow, grinding transfer of wealth from the bottom 90% to the top 0.1%. When empires fall, it is rarely due to an invasion from the outside. It is almost always due to the destruction of the currency from the inside. Rome debased the denarius. France printed the assignat until it was worthless. The US is doing the same with the dollar. The difference is, today, they have better propaganda to tell you everything is fine. Don't say these things to scare you. Say them to validate what your gut has been telling you for years. The reason you feel poor despite the good news is because you are becoming poorer in real terms. The system is designed to inflate assets and deflate wages. But there is a silver lining. Once you understand that the silent depression is real, you can stop playing by the old rules. You can stop trusting cash, which is designed to lose value. You can start learning about real assets, things that cannot be printed by a central bank. Gold, silver, land, Bitcoin, essential businesses. The era of blind trust in the economy is over. We are entering the era of personal verification. History is a script that has been written many times before. The actors change, the technology changes, but the plot remains the same. The empires that destroy their money eventually destroy themselves. The only question left is, will you be prepared when the silence finally breaks? If you want to survive the economic shift that is coming, and uncover more truths that the financial media refuses to cover, make sure you are subscribed to Economy Rewind. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And right now, the rhyme is getting louder.